just before I get into some of this Jaden Daniels stuff, we got some audio from Jayden. Just some sort of like business stuff. They cut another Ron Rivera draft pick.
Not many of them left.
They released third-year cornerback Christian Holmes. He was the 7th-round pick from the 2022 draft, but he did play in 30 games in his first 2 seasons for Washington.
Yeah,
Big
the late
special
rounders
teams guy.
They're gone. Dax Milne gone. Now Christian Holmes gone.
Yeah, Dax Milne was released last week. They signed another tackle, I guess, because they're trying to do some preservation with some of their tackles, specifically John Allen, I think Johnny Newton. They're kind of limiting their snaps a little bit, so they bring in another tackle.
You see Dan Quinn raving about Johnny Newton's speed.
No, but I've seen clips.
Says he has the speed of a defensive end in a D-tackle body.
Yeah, I've seen some clips on one-on-ones, and he looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So again, Quinn cited load management for guys like Newton after 2 off-season foot surgeries. Also trying to help limit some of the grind on Jonathan Allen. So just a little roster stuff there. Cakes, you mentioned the kicker, right? So did they cut the other guy? They just have both guys.
It's a kicker competition between Ramiz Ahmed and Riley Patterson.
Right.
They're going head-to-head.
So we mentioned that Jaden Daniels has been getting a lot of hype, and I don't think it's a bad thing. And it's also not unusual, right? Your first-round draft pick, your guy picked 2 overall. You're going to be excited about him. You're gonna see positive things. But people around the league are talking about him. Terry McLaurin's hyping him up. I think Sam Hartman's been just everybody's been positive about Jayden. And then Jayden was asked about the first preseason scrimmage and asked specifically about how he's going to handle sliding and taking care of his body. Valdez is trying to get it queued up. It's not his fault.
How will you balance showcasing your explosiveness versus sliding to protect yourself more, especially early on?
Just knowing you can take your chances when you can't. Love to see another play. It's a long season, so try to err on, protecting yourself, and if the chances are there, go ahead and take it.
Is that something that you talk about with the coaches at all, or is that something you just have to know on the field?
I'm very competitive, so I might try to take a chance here and there, but, they try to say, get down. So, it's time to find in that battle.
Well, he's a risk taker.
He's a baller.
He's a gambler.
He's a baller.
He wants to take a chance here and there.
I mean, he's got that little spindly body.
Does it worry you?
Not really, because he's been doing this his whole life. It doesn't really particularly worry me. Maybe it should, but I mean, like you guys say,
the knock on him was
quarterbacks get hurt.
Yeah, the knock on him coming in was the size, the frame.
Yeah.
He's skinny. Now, I think he's put on some weight. He doesn't strike me as overly skinny when I watch
the clips I've seen. He looks reasonable.
Yeah. He's thinner.
I did see somebody was positing that during one of the practices, and this had to be when it wasn't like 97 degrees outside, that he tried to make himself look a little bulkier by wearing, I believe, a hoodie underneath his practice jersey.
In this heat?
That's crazy.
So, yeah, that would be kind of crazy.
Especially, too, because you're going to probably lose, who knows, 7 pounds of water weight during a practice?
I would assume, yeah.
Now, I don't know if you have a clip of it. You probably don't, Valdez, but he was asked about, this first preseason game and about whether or not he's going to start. He seems to be kind of unaware. He just knows he's going to play. And the clip I saw, he's also just like, his family's going to be there, man. This is a lifelong dream, obviously, for all these guys to make it to the NFL. It's going to be his first NFL snaps. He's going to have family there. And he said they're going to be there, all the way. To be expected.
Yeah.
Go
on that ride with your kid as he's a rookie in the NFL.
Right.
Helps ease his transition, has people around him that make him comfortable. I think that's a great plan.
I think we talked about this the week before I went away. Drabby's like his new boy toy analyst is Kirk Benkert. Remember him, former NFL backup quarterback?
Yeah.
And he's kind of going on record, and he's putting some pressure on Jayden a little bit. And he said The Commanders are his version, and this is what JP was postulating could happen. We'll see if it does. His version of the 2023 Houston Texans. They were basically a 500 team, but of course last year, during Ron's tenure here, last year 4-13. They got the number 2 pick, but Benkert says the Commanders are his Texans of last year. He says they got better by leaps and bounds this offseason, and they're not going to be a walkover team for anybody that they play. And especially, he believes that Jaden Daniels could have a CJ Stroud-like impact. Cakes, if that happens.
That would be fantastic if that happened. That means
this town will be on fire.
That means playoff appearance in his rookie campaign.
I mean, they won, 11 games last year?
10
Texas?
or 11. I have to double check there. I know it was double digits.
Listen, I'm not going to go that crazy with it, but I do think now you scare me a little bit with the Nicky report that the offensive line was getting just boat raced by the defense yesterday. But 40% of the line was out, right? You had Wiley out, you had Cosme out, so you have backups in there. You're hoping that's why.
I keep seeing this report on Wiley that he's dealing with tightness. Tightness of what? Can you give us the body part? Is it a knee?
I'm gonna guess hamstring.
Hamstring. Like what is tight?
Right. I don't know.
It's very vague.
The offensive line's going to be an issue. There have been other days, though, where they've said that the defensive ends were getting dominated by the offensive line.
That's good. Maybe
so
when the
who
starters
knows?
were in there.
I think both of those positions are going to be areas of weakness.
Here's
the defensive ends are going to be Fowler, Armstrong, Farrell. They don't really have any studs.
Here's who you need to be silly. Brandon Coleman. Need him to start at left tackle and just take over that position. That's what this offensive line needs. There's a reason that Peters drafted him so high.
But back to Benkert's statement.
Big plans for him.
And if you want to chime in, 800-636-1067, we talked about this last week. And now I can't remember who mentioned this, but in the last 3 years, there have been 7, 7, and 6 teams, respectively, that didn't make the playoffs in 1 year and then made the playoffs next year. So, there are going to be 6 or 7 teams. Are the Commanders one of those teams? I think they can be, but it is all dependent on whether Jayden lives up to the hype. Now, the warning is in training camp, he's not taking – this is why I'd like to see him play as many snaps as possible. He's not taking real pressure because the guys aren't going to hit him. In the preseason, they'll hit him.
Right. But, again, he's got 5 years of big-time college football underneath his belt. Doesn't get any bigger than what LSU does there in Death Valley Cakes. I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's been groomed for this for a long time. Zach Ertz, who played with Andrew Luck at Stanford and is entering his 12th season in the NFL, Cakes, he's raving about Jayden. He says, frankly, that he reminds him of Andrew Luck. He says, with Jayden, I think he's going to be really good, and I don't think it's going to take very long.
I'm ready to bet overs on Zach Ertz's numbers. I'm ready for him to have a career renaissance in year 12.
That's crazy to me when he said that. Andrew Luck is still just 34 years old.
I saw him in the stands of the Olympics earlier this week.
He says he's coming into this thing. They don't want to overload him. This is Ertz talking about Jayden. Obviously, the physical tools stand out. You don't get drafted number 2 overall if you don't have the physical traits. But his ability to be intentional with everything that he does, he works extremely hard. He says, I was talking to someone the other day. I played with Andrew Luck in college, obviously. Still to this day, probably the best quarterback I ever played with. But Andrew almost had a gravitational pull to him. And John Keim touched on this. Guys just wanted to be around him. He was never bigger than the team. He was always just one of the guys. He was always building people up. He was a culture setter. A lot of quarterbacks, they win the Heisman. They get drafted number 2 overall. That's not how it is. They're
These guys
almost
love each
different
other.
as a quarterback. But that couldn't be further from the truth with Jayden. Jayden is a guy that brings people together.
He unites.
Guys want to be around him. he's communicating with whether you're a guy that's in year 12 or on the practice squad last year. There's no agenda with Jayden. He's here to be the best version of it. You couldn't ask for higher praise
it's a glowing
from a 12-year veteran.
Yeah.
So very, very cool to hear.
It's better than what you're hearing from some of these young quarterbacks. Now, Caleb Williams seems to be kicking ass, but Drake May seems to be rough. You see some people saying he's progressing, but others saying, I mean, we had a report last week that Joe Milton could be ahead of him.
What about JJ? I thought I read some good things about JJ.
I've seen mixed bag with JJ.
I thought of late JJ was moving up.
It's all over the place. There are some camp videos which show him like where he looks clueless, and then I think I saw a video of McCarthy yesterday during a drill where somebody said he looked Mahomes-esque, scrambling and then finding a guy in the end zone.
Right.
So, I mean, they're rookies. You're going to get a mixed bag out of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, here are 3 headlines about J.J. McCarthy. I just punched up latest news. J.J. McCarthy impressing people at Vikings training camp with arm talent. Vikings are terrible at turning down the heat on J.J. McCarthy. This is from a podcast, Patience with quarterback J.J. McCarthy in an impatient world. And then, is Kevin O'Connell leaning towards starting J.J. McCarthy?
I'm telling you. I've seen some of those more positive reports as of late, but who knows? But the good news is with Jayden, it just feels different. Someone asked me, "Did you feel the same way about Robert?" Listen, I was glowing about Robert. I thought Robert was going to be our guy, and frankly, he was for a year. After that, it went to hell for a million reasons. We don't have to, talk about it anymore. But this kid just seems just so much more humble than Robert that it just makes me hopeful. I
think you and the rest of the Commanders fan base have to be excited and hopeful about what he brings to the table.
And I just love the fact that he was a 3-time captain, played 5 years, Cakes, big-time college football, won the Heisman. He's not all about himself. Guys gravitate toward him. Can make all the throws. Super athletic. I mean, what else? I mean, it's up to us to not fail this kid.
Seems to be the total package. Just need him to deliver on the promise.
It's time to deliver.
Yep.